One of the most shocking developments of this year's show was the disqualification of the Netherlands in between the second semi-final and the grand final. This is the first time in Eurovision's history that a participant was expelled midway through the competition. First time. When all of this was unfolding, there wasn't a lot of information that was available, and so there was a lot of speculation, and there was a false association that was made between that announcement and this moment.
A personal question. Have you ever thought that by being here, you bring risk and danger for other participants and public?
You don't have to answer that question if you don't want to. Why not? If you want to answer.
Now, these kinds of rumors are the result of a bigger cultural problem that goes well beyond Eurovision. Fans are way too invested in the lives of the artists that they support. When they're emotional, they don't always think twice about what they're reading and whether or not it's true, and so this is something that I think was inevitable. But it was still a false association, as were any other rumors around why Joost was absent from rehearsals. Eventually, we got some more concrete details on Saturday when it was announced that the Netherlands was officially disqualified. According to the Dutch broadcaster Avatros, while Joost was on his way to the green room after his semi-final 2 performance, a member of the crew had filmed him, which they insist was done against clearly made agreements. The statement continues by saying, "At that moment, Joost repeatedly indicated that he did not want to be filmed. This wasn't respected. This led to a threatening movement from Joost towards the camera. Since then, we've heard his lawyer say that he pushed the camera away to remove it. He denies threatening this person." The EBU responded by saying, "Joost's behavior was in clear breach of contest rules, which are designed to ensure there is a safe working environment for all staff and to protect the production. Given the circumstances of what occurred and the fact that the police case will be shortly handed to the prosecutor, it would not have been appropriate for Joost to participate in the grand final." Now, we're still waiting for this case to actually go to court, and it's been said that charges like this usually take about 6 to 8 weeks to be processed. They've also requested for more witnesses to speak, which might delay the process even further. But from the moment that the EBU had made the disqualification official, Avatros had said that they found the decision to be very heavy and disproportionate. They also said that they had consulted extensively with the EBU and proposed several solutions. I imagine that one of those solutions would have been to keep the Netherlands in the competition but use rehearsal footage, just like how they did with the jury show the night before. And it is a wonder as to why they didn't do that, because if the concern was around safety, then removing Joost from the vicinity physically should have been enough to deal with that. There's definitely an argument to be made about image associated with the competition, especially if he were to go on and do really well and then be charged with something that was more serious. The problem with removing them altogether was that it didn't just impact Joost's work, it was that of the entire Dutch team. None of it was seen by the 100 million plus audience that watched the grand final, and as a result, the broadcaster lost in their investment. Recently, we've seen an updated statement from Avatros where they reaffirmed their original position based on the information that they had then and have now. They also addressed that they were cooperating with the investigation that's underway concerning the organization at Malmö and the behavior of the delegations backstage, but they added that they believe that a broader, more in-depth, and truly independent investigation is needed to address structural problems. And with respect to their future at Eurovision, they said, "Until Avatros is confident that structural adjustments will be made, we will keep participation in the Eurovision Song Contest under consideration." And so it will be very interesting to see how Avatros proceeds. Some people seem to think that they'll withdraw, but of course, there's a lot more that needs to be found out before that happens. Now, even without considering this incident, there's been a lot of discussion around the atmosphere backstage. But outside of the events this year, we've seen artists from previous years speak out about their experiences as well. Dutch artist Estine, who represented the Netherlands in 2022, said that her boundaries were crossed by many people behind the scenes.
Ook vooral de mensen die backstage werken, die gewoon heel onprofessioneel omgaan met hun taken. Kijk, wij in Nederland zijn gewoon heel goed gestroomlijnd in. Hier backstage, mensen gaan niet met je op de foto, die ga je niet filmen of videoboodschappen voor hun nichtjes en neefjes vragen. Maar daar, van cameraman tot degene die je eerst doet, in ieder geval in Italië, was dat gewoon wel zo. En dat is heel heftig. Ik schaamde mij dus de hele tijd ook best wel dat het in de documentaire zat, omdat ik steeds dacht, nu gaat iedereen mij weer zo zeikerd vinden die het allemaal weer niet aan kan. En precies het weekend voordat de documentaire uitkomt, wordt het ineens wel heel duidelijk. En dat heb ik zeker zo ervaren.
One of the things that she said elsewhere was that people constantly wanted something from her. And when you consider all of what they do outside of their rehearsals, that's really no surprise. And you could look at examples like Eurovision's social media platforms to see just how many additional things have been added to the list of things to do.
Let's play Top of the Tulsa.
And that's just what Eurovision asks of them. That doesn't even cover the press requests that they get, which can be numerous and sometimes are made on the spot when they're in between obligations, hoping to have some time to relax. Esteen is also not the only artist to speak out about this. Recently, we saw Raika, a Canadian artist who represented Switzerland in 2016, speak about their experience, where they described having feelings of being negatively pushed into decisions, exploited, and even thrown away. And so all of this is raising some questions about the demand that's placed on artists outside of the main priority, to perform the song. And with all of the criticism around the heightened environment this year, that should at least be considered a contributing factor with respect to this incident with Joost. It doesn't excuse it, and ultimately, if he's found guilty, he's the one that's going to face the consequences. But it should not be considered a coincidence that something like this happened at a time when the tension was higher than ever. The EBU already admitted that the artists should not be bearing the brunt of the criticism for Israel's participation, because it wasn't their decision. And many artists have spoken up about how that's affected their well-being. And so I imagine, and I hope as well, that this will lead to some discussions around safeguarding the artists, because clearly more needs to be done to protect their interests. And that might mean having to make significant changes to things like the rules of conduct backstage, the production cycle outside of the main event for social media and the like, the level of access that press is given on site. Any of these could be changing for 2025. But if we're talking about change for the future, it seems that a lot of people are looking more at the top.
What can you tell us about the result?
Yeah, good evening.
There's a big question around whether or not the executive supervisor will be around for another year. For more thoughts on that, I hope you check out the full video, where we also talk about the government-funded ad campaign that boosted Israel's score, as well as our winner Switzerland and runner-up Croatia. If you enjoyed this video, you could consider supporting me on Buy Me a Coffee or by subscribing. I'd love to have you back so that we can talk about this uncertain future that we're heading into. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again. Take care.